Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking an absolutely epic road trip, but we aren't crossing a country or flying to space. No, we're traveling back in time to explore your very own biological development in utero. For the next few minutes, we're going to unpack the most complex, rapid, and honestly mind-blowing physical and cognitive transformation you have ever been through. And the crazy part? All of this happened before you even took your first breath. But before we trace the blueprint of you, I've got to ask a question. When does a pregnancy actually begin? If you guessed when the sperm meets the egg, well, you're actually wrong. Healthcare providers officially start the 40-week pregnancy clock on the first day of the mother's last menstrual period. That means, biologically speaking, the first 2 weeks of a 40-week pregnancy happen before conception even occurs. Your body is basically spending 2 solid weeks just getting the runway ready for the main event.
Okay, let's dive right into this journey. We've got 5 stops: the starting line, the embryonic stage, becoming a fetus, the second trimester, and finally, the third trimester.
Most people just talk about pregnancy in terms of 3 trimesters, blocks of about 3 months each. But scientists and doctors actually break development down into these 3 distinct, action-packed stages: the germinal stage, the embryonic stage, and the fetal stage. Those first 2 stages are super short, but man, they do all the heavy lifting. Section 1. The starting line, the germinal stage and conception. So this incredibly foundational stage officially kicks off at conception. That's the precise moment a sperm and an egg finally join forces in the fallopian tube. At week 3 of the 40-week timeline, fertilization occurs and you officially became a zygote. A zygote is just a single fertilized egg that immediately begins dividing into a rapidly growing cluster of cells. For an entire week, this tiny cluster journeys down the fallopian tube, making its way toward the uterus. By week 4, that zygote transforms into what's called a blastocyst. This blastocyst arrives at the uterus and literally implants itself right into the uterine lining. At this point, the cells are highly specialized. One part begins to form the placenta, which is going to provide oxygen and nutrients, while another part forms a watertight amniotic sac. That sac basically acts as a shock-absorbing cushion for the rest of the journey. What's really wild here is the sheer scale of what we're talking about. At the end of week 4, the entire blueprint of you, the blastocyst, the sac, the beginnings of the placenta, was only 2 millimeters long. That is exactly the size of a tiny poppy seed. Yet all the genetic instructions to build your brain, your bones, and even your eye color are already fully present. Section 2. The embryonic stage, weeks 5 to 8. This is the period where that tiny cluster of cells begins to build actual human organs. It's also, famously, the point where the pregnancy hormones kick into overdrive and the mother's morning sickness and serious fatigue usually start. During week 5, things move at lightning speed. The neural tube forms, which will soon become the brain and the spinal cord of the central nervous system. This is the absolute foundation of your cognitive development. It's where all your future thoughts, memories, and, even that eventual teen angst will come from. At the exact same time, a tiny cluster of cells forms what is called a heart tube. Before it even looks like a traditional heart, this incredible little cluster is already pulsing at 110 beats per minute. By weeks 7 and 8, things get a little weird. Actually, scratch that, they get very weird. As an embryo, you actually looked a bit like a seahorse, or maybe a tadpole. You had a very prominent tail that eventually receded, a giant head that took up literally half your body length, webbed hands and feet, and a skeleton made entirely of soft cartilage rather than hard bone. And all of this was connected by a fully developed umbilical cord. Capping off the second month, you had grown from a microscopic poppy seed to the size of a black bean, roughly ½ an inch to 1 inch long. But do not let the size fool you. Inside that tiny black bean, major organs were developing, and your blood was officially circulating. Moving on to Section 3, Becoming a Fetus, weeks 9 to 12. Month 3 marks a massive milestone because you officially graduate from being an embryo to a fetus. Since the most critical foundational stuff is basically done, this is also the point where the risk of miscarriage drops considerably. Moving into weeks 9 and 10, you got some massive biological upgrades. That soft cartilage skeleton began hardening into actual bone, the little webbed paddles separated, leaving fully formed fingers and toes, external ears began to pop up, and by week 11, you were even opening and closing your brand new tiny fists. By week 12, here is a rather shocking and, slightly gross biological truth. Your circulatory, urinary, and digestive systems were officially working. Because you are floating in a protective balloon of amniotic fluid, you are actively drinking that fluid and then peeing it right back out into the sac. It is literally the ultimate closed-loop recycling system, and it's totally essential for lung and digestive development. By the end of this first trimester, you hit an incredible growth spurt. You are now the size of a plum, measuring about 2.5 to 3 inches long. You had vocal cords, little fingernails, and a developing liver that was already producing bile. Section 4. The second trimester, weeks 13 to 28. If the first trimester is about building the foundation, the second trimester is all about refinement and action. For the mother, the discomfort and morning sickness of early pregnancy often fade away right around here. This mid-pregnancy period is packed with milestones. Around week 18 to 20, an ultrasound can usually reveal the baby's assigned sex, and the mother can finally feel the physical kicks and flips. By week 24, something super cool happens. Your completely unique footprints and fingerprints are permanently drawn. You also begin to experience regular sleep and wake cycles, which is a massive leap in brain function and cognitive awareness. It's not just a physical thing. Your developing brain is actively mapping out its own rhythms. This milestone is critical for viability outside the womb. According to pediatric researchers, if a baby is born early at 28 weeks, so the end of the second trimester, the survival rate is actually 92%. However, it's important to note that babies born this early still face serious respiratory and neurologic complications simply because they just aren't finished cooking yet.
Section 5. The third trimester, weeks 29 to 40.
From week 29 up to week 40, the mission is incredibly simple but absolutely vital. Pack on the pounds. The fetus gains weight rapidly, adding critical body fat that acts as insulation for when they finally enter the outside world. By week 32, the fetus is acting very human. They're practicing opening and closing their eyes, getting used to the sensation of blinking. This is a clear sign of an advanced cognitive motor connection happening right in the brain. Their entire skeletal structure is fully formed, but the bones remain intentionally soft and pliable so they can safely make it through the delivery process. We often say pregnancy is 9 months, right? But medically, it's a highly strict 40-week timeline. The NICHD classifies anything before 37 weeks as preterm. 37 to 38 weeks is called early term. True full term is specifically weeks 39 and 40, and anything past 41 weeks is considered late or post-term. So the crucial takeaway here is why crossing that specific finish line at 39 or 40 weeks matters so much. Research shows that unless there's a pressing medical reason, delivering early is risky. Those last few weeks in the womb are absolutely vital for the lungs, the liver, and especially the brain to perfect their complex functions. That final stretch ensures the best possible health and cognitive outcomes for life on the outside. Think about that for a second. You successfully survived a 40-week epic journey, transforming from a microscopic poppy seed into a highly complex, breathing, thinking human being. You completely finished your most complex physical transformation before you even saw the light of day. So as you go about your life with this amazing biological machine, what are you going to do next? Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop marveling at the insane science of the human body. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.